Sairam, everyone. Thank you. Today we got a speaker already well known to this congregation. She's been here twice or thrice, I can't remember. It's none other than Brahmacharani Nandana ji. So people who joined newly, I just give a brief description details of her. She was with a close proximity to our Swami for almost 12 years. Then, as per Swami's request, she came to UK, and here she happened to meet Saint Dayananda Saraswati. Then she was under him, or maybe working with him for 3.5 years, and in South India or two. Then here we are. We got here for her to teach us or spread the Vedic lessons and everything. So I'm glad to welcome Nandana ji again to our congregation. Sairam Nandana ji is all yours, all these virtual stage is yours now.
Sairam. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. Sairam, and thank you for inviting me to speak again. So today's topic, some people were very interested in knowing a bit more about the Gita and the Upanishads, I heard. So it's vast, as we know, Gita 700 verses itself. To pick certain important ones is not an easy task. But I've picked something which is relevant, I think, to day-to-day life, because that is another doubt that comes. How do we make this teaching relevant to our day-to-day life? Because it should not be divorced from what I have to face in reality. So I've picked some verses in line with this. Upanishads also, again, a vast subject. I've picked only a couple of verses from the Upanishads, which also help supplement the Gita verses, because Gita is only, as Bhagavan says in the in the Dhyana shlokas, Sarvo Upanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat, which means that the Gita is nothing but the essence, the milk of the Upanishads. And who is milking? Who is the milkman? He is Gopalaha. Bhagavan himself, Krishna, is milking the Upanishads. And Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta, who is enjoying this milk? His calf, Arjuna. And Arjuna is obviously representative of everybody here. Bhagavan is giving the milk of the Upanishads, the essence of the Upanishads, through the Bhagavad Gita to everybody who wants to know the teaching. So with that, what I've done for today's lecture is also take from Gita Vahini, very beautiful books. If you ever have the chance to read the Vahinis by Swami, very nice synopsis of each chapter he gives in the Gita Vahini. Upanishad Vahini gives very nice brief synopsis of the Mukhya Upanishads, of the 10 principal Upanishads there as well. And I've taken some sections from those particular books of Swami's, and I'm comparing them to the verses, what Swami is actually talking about in regard to Bhagavad Gita. So it'll be very interesting, as you're all Sai devotees, to see where Swami is, what Swami is saying and why he's saying the things he says as well. So with that, I'd just like to begin with some opening traditional prayers, and whoever knows at home is willing to, welcome to join with me. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Sai Ram. So Swami says, in the Gita Vahini, he begins the Gita Vahini saying, this Gita is a text for spiritual practitioners, for it emphasizes the spiritual discipline and spiritual attitudes more than anything else. Every chapter lays down means and methods of reaching the goal of harmony and peace. The Gita is a boat which takes people across from the self-imposed state of bondage to the freedom that is their nature. Of course, it is not Arjuna alone that got such advice. All mankind needs it. Arjuna is only representative of man. And students of the Gita must learn this lesson first. The Gita is primarily for every seeker. And there is a saying in the Mahabharata, in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata, where Bhishma tells, Gita su Gita kartavya kim anyehi shastrehi vistarehi, which means by studying Bhagavad Gita alone, everything is gained. What is the use of studying other scriptures when you can study Bhagavad Gita well, then you have the whole knowledge. And this is what Swami also, I continue with what Swami says about Bhagavad Gita. He says, the Gita is addressed to humanity. Man performs acts that are prompted by desire for the fruits thereof. If the acts do not yield fruit, they will not perform the acts at all. Profit, gain, reward, result, these are what people seek. But this rule does not apply to those who take the Gita in their hands and drink the nectar of the Lord's message. Not all yearn for the nectar, but if you do, it is evident that you aspire for eternal joy, eternal liberation. Then Swami says, you must pay the price. What is that price? The giving up of desire for the fruit of action and dedicate everything to the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the main teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is what I'm going to address, this lifestyle, which is highly important, crucial for everybody who is interested in a spiritual pursuit, who is interested in spiritual life. So I'm going to bring in first a very famous Upanishad, because that Kathopanishad, it's called Kathopanishad. You may have heard of it, where a young boy called Nachiketas, he is sent to Yamaloka by his father because his father is angry. And in anger, he says, Mrityum tvam dadami. He says, I give you to death, Lord Death. So he goes to Yamaloka. But this boy is an incredible soul, because all he wants is knowledge. He doesn't care. Lord Yama offers him everything on this planet and in the heavens as well, all the wealth, all the fame, all the name. And this boy, young boy, he says, no, I want to know something more. I know life is not all about this. I want to know the truth. So Lord Yama himself teaches this young boy Brahma Vidya, and he begins the teaching by a very famous verse, again connected to Bhagavad Gita, what I'm going to discuss in the Bhagavad Gita. He tells Nachiketas, he says, Shreyascha preyascha manusyametaha tau samparitya vivinakti dhiraha shreyo hi dhiro viprate prayo mando yogakshemad vrinite. Which means there are two things open to everybody in life. What are those two things? One is prayers. One is a life of prayers, which is what everybody seeks. 99.9% of the people on this planet seek that. Fame, power, money, pleasure, and so on is included under prayers. Everybody is aiming for these things alone, because in the world, this is success. In the eyes of people, this is success. But he says, true success is not this, O Nachiketas. It is a path called Shreyas. Shreyas is the ultimate path, the one that solves the fundamental problem, as we have seen in the previous class, that non-acceptance, the non-acceptance of oneself, the feeling of self-lack, the feeling of I'm not good enough, because I'm limited to this body, mind, senses. So all the problems of the body, mind, senses are taken on me. And he says, this is not what you truly are. Shreyas is the path to discover what you truly are, which is beyond limitations, because you are essentially in nature Atma, pure consciousness. And this is what you're seeking through all the pursuits in life, through all the prayers in life. What you really are seeking is this Atma. Ultimately, you're seeking yourself. It is like the musk deer that smells this wonderful fragrance, and it runs around looking for where the fragrance comes from. And what does it not realize? It is coming from itself alone. The fragrance is emanating from itself, and it's not realizing that. So this is what moksha is, the discovery of the self. And this is what's called self-knowledge. So he begins this teaching to Nachiketas in the Upanishads, important verse, with two paths, he says, in life. Which one do you wish to take? And I'm going to relate it to the Gita, because one of the essential verses I picked in the Gita appears in the 2nd chapter, verse 41. It is, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kuru nandana bahushaka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. So in this verse, I feel one of the most important verses, Bhagavan is saying, Krishna is saying that there has to be a single pointed knowledge of what you really want in life. What is it you're looking for through all the pursuits? As we saw in the previous talk, we saw there are 4 pursuits open to all of humanity. Artha kama dharma moksha, or dharmartha kama moksha. Dharma is always put first. What is it that you want when you seek pleasures, when you seek security? What is it you're ultimately looking for? So Bhagavan is telling Arjuna, be clear what you want. And we saw in that talk, what we really want through all the things I do in my life is to be happy. I want to be happy, not just one moment in a day, or in a week, in a year, or in a year, in a lifetime. I want to be happy 24/7. And this is what Bhagavan is saying. If you want this happiness, this is what moksha is, the discovery of total happiness, total fulfillment, total satisfaction. If you want this, you have to be clear with your goal. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kuru nandana. Be very clear what your goal is in life. Don't get sidetracked into other things, because bahushaka hyanantascha. There are many, he says, life it offers so much. You have so much variety, and especially now with social media and WhatsApp and Facebook and all of these children, again, being bombarded with all of this, you have so much choice, so many things that you can do as well. But he says, even in the spiritual marketplace, people are offering this technique, that technique. If you do this, if you stand on your head for 3 hours, you'll get moksha. If you do this pranayama exercise, you will get liberation. So many things are being offered, but I have to realize what is it I'm really seeking and how do I get it? That has to be clear. Bhagavan in the Gita, he gives the methodology of gaining what the final goal is. And we need staying power. So this verse I'm beginning with, because nothing else in the Bhagavad Gita can make sense unless you have this verse first, that I'm very clear about my goal. My goal is moksha. My life is not just to eat, sleep, enjoy, procreate, and die off. That is not my life purpose. My life is for something greater. It is for moksha as envisaged in the Vedas. So Shraddha, staying power, Bhagavan is talking about AK, he says in this verse, staying power in life on the spiritual pursuit, because it is not easy, definitely not easy. When the whole world is going in one direction, I am going in another direction. But ultimately, what Bhagavan also says is that worldly life is like nectar at the beginning and poison at the end. Spiritual life is like poison at the beginning, but nectar at the end. Which one will you choose? It is very clear. It is a choiceless choice. I want nectar, and I don't want to start with nectar and end in poison. I want nectar. That is it. So it does take some effort at the beginning. It does take some commitment, and it does take focus. And that is what he discusses in this verse. Then in the 3rd chapter, he talks about how I can gain this moksha, which I've picked as also a very important verse. It is a choice of lifestyle he gives now. There are no 4 paths to liberation. There are only 2, actually. In fact, he offers 2 choices to Arjuna. He says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Vivida Nishtha Pura Prokta Mayanagha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. So for the committed people, the ones who have the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi from the previous verse, in the 3rd chapter, he says, I'm offering two lifestyles here. What are those lifestyles? You can exclusively pursue knowledge, and that is a lifestyle of renunciation. Sankhya Yoga, it's called, which is more a renunciant lifestyle, more of lived in life of contemplation. You drop out basically of the rat race, and then you start also entering the spiritual life. And the people who enter this lifestyle, very, very few and far between. Even of those who enter this renunciation, this path of renunciation, which is like a razor's edge, it said in the Upanishad, it is very, very difficult, because you can easily slip and you can, not be very clear in future which way you want to go, because it is that tough to enter. So it is not meant for the majority of humanity, the Sankhya Yoga lifestyle. And Bhagavan does not recommend it itself to Arjuna, because he knows Arjuna is not ready for such renunciation. So for the majority of people, what does he recommend? He says, Karma Yogena Yoginam. For the people who are immersed in this world, who have to, earn a living, they're working in the world, they're living in the world, they have families to take care of, they have duties to do. They cannot just quit everything and go and live in the Himalayas or somewhere like that. For those people who equally want moksha, we have to be clear. Bhagavan is very clear here. Both lifestyles, the goal is still moksha, but Bhagavan is giving a choice. Which one do you take? So it is actually not much of a choice, because most of us are in the world and we have to work. We have our children, we have everything to support. So we choose this karma yoga lifestyle. And this is where Bhagavan says, this is where he can help. And he says, Pura Prokta Mayanakha. That is where I'm bringing in. Pura Prokta means, I have said this before in the Vedic times. I have quoted this exact same idea in the Vedic times. And where does it come? He doesn't say that in the Bhagavad Gita, but it comes in Ishavasya Upanishad. It is a very, very famous Upanishad, beginning with, you may have heard, Ishavasyam idaggus sarvam yatkinchit jagatyam jagat. Very beautiful opening line. Ishavasyam idam jagat. This whole jagat, universe, is pervaded by that one Lord, that consciousness, pure Brahman. Ishavasyam idagum sarvam yatkinchit jagatyam jagat. Any little thing in this world, there's not a nook or cranny where Bhagavan does not pervade. He is everywhere. And in the second verse of that Upanishad, he says, Kurvanneveha karma ani jijivishets chatagum samaaha evam tvai nanyato ostina karmate lipyate nare. In that Upanishad, it said, may you desire to live for 100 years on this earth, doing actions alone, because there is no other way to live. You have to act. Nahi kashtit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. A human being cannot sit for a second without doing an action. Even if you say, I'm sitting silently, there's still involuntary actions going along. So the scriptures themselves say, nobody can sit still without doing any action. But what we're talking about is how we act in our life. That is what we are learning from Bhagavan here through the Bhagavad Gita. So in this Upanishad, he says, the 100 years you have, the lifespan given to every human on this earth is lived with action, but live in no other manner than a karma yogi. Live as a karma yogis. And then the Upanishad goes on to say, actions will not taint you if you live in this manner. So it is very important to understand how actions cannot taint me. And this is where I brought in very important verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, the limitlessness is what we really want. To accomplish that limitlessness, these two lifestyles are offered. And living in the world as a karma yogi is real renunciation. I would say that. How do we live the life of renunciation living in this world? We live the life of renunciation through this karma yogi lifestyle. And bhakti also comes in here. When you talk about bhakti, what about the bhakti as well? Bhakti is common for both, for a sannyasi, renunciant, and for a person who lives a karma yoga lifestyle. Because bhakti devoid of karma yoga doesn't work. And karma yoga devoid of bhakti doesn't work. So this is what mainly Bhagwan is talking about here. And he goes on to say, everybody is in the hands of something called Raga Dvesha. Raga Dvesha means intense likes and intense dislikes. So binding, meaning I want this to happen. If this thing that I want is not fulfilled, I'm very unhappy. If the thing I want to avoid, I cannot get rid of, I am unhappy. So Raga Dvesha dominates a human being's life. My likes and dislikes, my reactions to situations in life are based on what I want to happen and what I don't want to happen. I resist what I don't want to happen, and I long for what I want to happen. And in fact, this is a trap, Bhagavan says, that human beings fall into. And this is the main reason for our sorrow, that we cannot accept unpleasant situations. We cannot accept that life is dual, that sukha dukkhe, there is, when there's pleasure, Swami always used to say, pleasure is an interval between two pains. Where there is pain, there will be pleasure. So life is fluctuating like this for whole of everyone on this planet. But how do I manage these likes and dislikes? Again, karma yoga is the way, and that is why Bhagavan brings in a beautiful, one of the most famous verses in the Bhagavad Gita I've picked. And it's, even if you have this one verse in life, you can skim through life with a very, very easy mind, very comfortable mind. The verses from chapter 2, verse 47, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kada ma karma phala heturbuhu ma te sangostva karmani. So one part of the karma yoga lifestyle is given in this verse. What is that? Attitude. How do I do my action in life? So the results, action and the results of action are discussed in this verse. How do we act in this world? So Bhagavan says here, have a healthy attitude towards action. Have a healthy attitude towards the results of action. It is all attitudinal change, how you do everything. He says, te karmani adhikaraha asti. You have a free will, oh man, given by the Lord himself. You can decide how you want to do things in life. You can decide to do things. You can decide not to do things. You can decide to do things differently. So you have a free will, and free will means choice. You have, so Bhagavan says, te karmani adhikaraha asti. You have choice over your action. You can choose how you want to act. You're not programmed, not instinctual like animals. You have adhikara. That is why we keep goals in life. That is why you aim for things in life. You choose what to do. Profession, you choose your profession. You choose what A-levels you want to do. You choose which college you want to go to. You choose where you want to work. All choices in life. That is free will. We have our free will. So our karma is based on our likes and dislikes. Again, anything I do is based on my likes and dislikes, attraction and repulsion, gain and avoidance. This is how life is working. But what does he say? Ma phaleshu kadachana. But if you have choice over action, ma phaleshu kadachana, with regard to the result of action, with regard to karma phalam, you have no choice. It is choiceless. You cannot choose what you will receive in life as karma phalam. What you're getting, what moment you're getting, when you're getting, where you're getting, you have no choice over that. Why? Because I am the karma phala data. Bhagavan says, I am the one who gives the results of your action. Nobody has a say in the results. So this is when he says, Ma phaleshu kadachanaha, it means it is choiceless. You still have to work hard. You still have to, even if you work because you expect results. And now you think, oh, the results are not in my hands. Why should I work? He says, Mate sangos karmani, in the same verse. You still have to make effort. Even though you know the result is not in your hands, don't become fatalistic. You can make effort, but leave the results for me. I will manifest in my own time, according to your karma, past, present, and future of everyone I can see, and I will manifest according to your karma. When you're due to get something, it will definitely come to you. So we have to live the life with the mantra, hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. So it is good to be equipped like that. You hope for the best. We expect a result from the action. Definitely, I will not act without expecting a result. I expect a result for the action, but be prepared for the result not happening as the way you would like it to happen. Because results all the time do not go the way I want. Most of the time they don't, actually. I put in all the effort and things they don't go the way I want. How do I take? This is what Bhagavan is saying. Sangaha akarmani me te astu. Do not consider actions as a waste. Even if you don't get what you want, everything has a result. It is a law. Any action you do, all the effort you make in any field will definitely fructify either in this life or in future lives for you. So that is a law. It is definitely not going to go to waste. It's like every vote counts. If you say, oh no, he's already going to win, the vote is decided, and you don't cast your vote, then what? You are not participating in this great yajna of karma. You're actually letting your chance to change things drop off, because your vote could count. That one vote could count. That's why Bhagavan says, don't sit and claim destiny. Everything is prarabdha, everything's my karma, without making action. You realize the result is not in your hand, but you still continue to act. Then you ask, how are the results decided? Yes, ma phaleshu kadachana, he says. We saw that, ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma karma phala hetur buhu, another very important line. It means never think you are the cause for the result. Because once you think you are the cause for the result, I did this, I claimed this, I didn't do this. It's all the I specialist in us. We always claim all the effort. When you think you are the cause for the result, then what happens? The result doesn't come, you get disappointed, you blame yourself. I didn't do good enough. You label yourself a failure depending on the phalam. And you cannot, Bhagavan is saying by this verse, you cannot label yourself success or failure. You have contributed, definitely, but Devam, Bhagavan's grace only has manifested the result for you. It is he who gets all the accolades. If anything should go, it should go to him. And this is the attitude of a karma yogi. So karma phala data, Bhagavan is called in the Shastra the giver of the results of action, because karma dhyaksha, another name he's given, he is the witness of every action. He knows. Even though you think you can get away with doing a wrong action, going against dharma, he is very much in you as antaryami, watching, witness. He knows exactly. Other people may not see what you have done, but your conscience, Bhagavan is sitting there, he knows, and it's called karma dhyaksha. So he knows very well, past, present, and future of every jiva and the actions that every jiva has done. So very important verse to show, to recap, that you have power over action alone in life. You have no power over the results of action. And he also says, he goes on to saying in these next few verses of Bhagavad Gita are very important. He says, Yogastah kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So follow this lifestyle, Arjuna. Dhananjaya, remain steadfast in this karma yoga lifestyle. Do what is to be done by you, which in Arjuna's case, he had to fight the war. Krishna was telling him, this is Kshatriya dharma. It is like a policeman. When a burglary is happening, policeman says, no, I don't want to harm the burglars. I don't want to hurt the burglars. And policeman not doing his duty. Exactly in the same case. In those days, Kshatriyas had to protect the dharma of the land. And Arjuna was going against his swadharma, what was to be done by him. So Bhagavan is saying, take to this yoga, karma yoga, and don't think of the attachment. Abandon all attachment to the results. Don't worry. The result is in my hand. Whether this war is won by you, whether it's not your problem. You have to do what is to be done. I will give the result. And do what's to be done, but with what attitude? He says, siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva, which means remain relatively the same in success or failure. Okay, we cannot remain absolutely the same in success and failure, because we're emotional beings. When we're successful, definitely we will feel great, we'll feel elated because there is some success in life. When things don't go our way, then we will definitely feel a bit disappointed. But a karma yogi snaps out of it because the knowledge is there. No, this result is from Bhagavan. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to take this as a failure. This Bhagavan has done for my best. And I'm going to continue working and acting and doing what is to be done, no matter what result comes, because it's all in Bhagavan's hands. Our Swami says, Satyasai, he says, and the yogi who dedicates all the actions to God, who has learned the secret of action combined with renouncing the fruits of thereof, should have mindedness, sama buddhi, more than mind with attachments, which is sangha buddhi. Swami says this again in regard to this verse. So this verse, these verses bringing the theme of the Gita, which is samatvam, or equal-mindedness, equanimity. It is titiksha, which is another word that's used, bearing the pairs of opposites in life. Because life is all pairs of opposite. Where there's joy, there's sorrow. Where there's heat, there's cold. Where there's loss, there's gain. Where there's success, there's failure. Where there's praise, there's censure. Everything we face in life is opposites. How do I face these opposites? And this is what Bhagavan is again reiterating in here. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrite dushkrite tasmada yoga yujjasva yoga karma kaushalam. So you cannot dedicate, in this verse basically he's saying again, you cannot dedicate everything to the Lord. You cannot do everything for the Lord if it is adharmic, if it goes against if it goes against dharma. You cannot do that action. Like a thief, if he wants to rob a house and he says, I am dedicating all my robbery to Bhagavan, and whatever result I get is his prasadam. No, if you do wrong action, Bhagavan says in this verse, wrong action will not work. It is karma yoga, yoga karmasu kaushalam. You have to be discreet in your action. It has to be in accordance with dharma, what is ethical, what is right thing to do. So Bhagavan again, Satyasai, he says here, for the intellect with attachments draws this person to entanglements. This action is mine. It's resulted due to my endeavors. I am the person entitled to it. Such the thoughts bind the person who's acting. Krishna has advised that one should rise above this mind with attachments and desires. And he says this practice of samatvam, equanimity, is the genuine devotional practice in life. So he says in the 3rd chapter, Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara. Therefore, always perform well the action that is to be done without attachment, because by performing your action without attachment to the results, you gain the highest. This is the attitude over action. Now, how do I divinize my actions in life? How do I divinize? He also gives the answer for that in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 3rd chapter, very beautiful verse, he says, Mai karmani mai sarvani karmani sanyasyatmatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yuddhasva vigata jvaraha. So how am I going to act in life now? First, we have seen the attitude that changes, but how do I perform the action? Mai sarvani karmani. Offer all your actions to me. Anything you do in life, before you do it, say, Bhagavan, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this action for you. This is to be done action. I may not like what is to be done. I may not like my duty, but it is worship of you. That is why Swami all the time, he says, work is worship. Work is worship is exactly what Swami is saying. I offer my actions to the Lord. And how do I offer the actions? This is important to see that what kind of mind. It's not gritting my teeth and saying, I'm offering my actions. No. Nirashihi, without worry for the future result. Nirashihi means not looking for future, not looking for what am I going to get if I do this, this type of thinking without having that. Nirashihi. Nirmamaha. Nirmamaha means without that feeling of mine. This is mine. This is mine. This is my job. I have to do it. That feeling also doesn't come into the mind. And vigata jvaraha literally means without fever. Okay. Jwara means fever in Sanskrit. Vigata means devoid of that frustration and anger, because things sometimes we don't like to do what we have to do in life. And Bhagavan, with this verse, is saying, you, even if you don't like to do what you have to do in life, unfolding for you, and you have to do it with a smile. Vigata jwaraha, do it without anger, do it without frustration. Because why? Mai sarvani karmani, you're doing it for me. You're not doing it for anybody else. If you're doing it for the Lord, how will you do the action? You will offer only the best to the Lord, right? Nobody is going to offer the worst to the Lord. So that is why, for my sake, you're doing it for me. You divinize your actions in one way. And another verse in the 9th chapter, again, he brings in the same idea in the Bhagavad Gita, very beautiful. Yakkaroshi yadashnasi, yadjuhoshi dadasita yattapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushvamadarpanam. Whatever you do, O Arjuna, whatever you eat, whatever ritual you perform, whatever you give, whatever religious discipline you do, whatever action you do in life, please do it as an offering to me. Bhagavan says that himself. Please do the action as offering to me. And if you offer it to Bhagavan, what happens? What you get from Bhagavan becomes prasadam. Because when you're offering to Bhagavan, what you receive back from Bhagavan is prasadam. We do it every day in our puja. We offer naivedyam to Bhagavan. We take that naivedyam as prasadam. When we offer in the temple, the priest offers naivedyam to Bhagavan, and he brings the padam out from the garbhagraham, from the sanctum sanctorium, and he gives everyone. What is that attitude that we have in the temple? When we accept the prasadam, we take it humbly and we touch it to our eyes even before we consume it. Even if I don't like, suppose I get chundal, I don't like chundal prasadam. I don't throw it back at the altar. I don't throw it back at the priest and say, I don't like this prasadam, give me some other prasadam. Does anybody do that? No. It is an attitude of reverence, and that is what prasada buddhi is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever I get in life, this prasada buddhi, humble acceptance, even if I don't like the situation that's unfolding, it is from the Lord's altar alone, because I've offered all the actions to him. Whatever I get, results, is his prasadam. This is the mind of a karma yogi. This is the way that a karma yogi lives in the world. Satya Sai, our Bhagavan says, give up the idea that you are the doer and the beneficiary. You can do this by dedicating both the deed and the fruit to the Lord. Then no sin can affect you, for you are not the doer, and the deed must perforce be holy. Like oil on the tongue, collyrium in the eye, the lotus leaf on water, the deed is with you, but not by you. Whatever you do, hear, or see, remain unaffected, remain untouched. Swami says that in the Gita Vahini. So whole life becomes one, which is offered to the Lord. Everything is offered to the Lord. And when one lives this karma yoga lifestyle, you get a mind which is calm, peaceful, without conflicts. This is the whole idea. Bhagavan is preparing that mind for Atma Jnanam, for the knowledge of the self. Living life in this particular way for a few years, for a certain time, you prepare your mind like tilling the soil for the seeds of Jnanam to sprout in that land. Otherwise, if it's barren ground, Jnanam cannot sprout in a mind which is not ready. So then in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan goes on to another very, very important topic. Once this karma yoga lifestyle, you live for a length of time, the mind becomes more and more calm, less disturbed, then that it is ready for meditation. So in chapter 6, he talks about the yoga of meditation. And Satyasaya Swami says in this particular chapter, about this chapter, he says, the yoga of meditation is possible only on the basis of this renunciation of the fruit of action. If the mind is not under control and amenable to one's orders, it can become one's greatest foe in life. So live in a solitary life so that you can master the senses. A horse without reins A bull unused to the yoke and a spiritual aspirant whose senses are not mastered are like a river without water. Such spiritual discipline is a waste. So he tells, Swami says in this particular chapter, introduction in Gita Vahini, he says, so arise Arjuna, practice the yoga of meditation, resolve to master the senses through this yoga and follow it steadily, systematically, regularly at a stated time and place without changing them as your whim takes you. And with this quote of Swami's, there's a verse in the Kaivalya Upanishad, very beautiful Upanishad, very short one of about 28 verses, 27, 28 verses only. And it has everything in that Upanishad. And in the Upanishad, the words are Vivikta deshe cha sukasanastaha Shutis samagriva shirashariraha antyashramastassakalendriyani nirudya bhaktya swagurum pranamya. Describes, as Bhagwan also does in chapter 6, how to sit. So sit in a secluded place, comfortable place. It should be a pure place, clean place, with the head, body, and neck in alignment. That is very important because Bhagwan also talks about the posture of meditation. Restrain your senses. So bring your senses in from the outside, external world. Bow with devotion to the Guru and begin your meditation. This is how the Upanishad describes how one begins the meditation. And what should we meditate on? That is also, we should know what to meditate on. So first it begins with the form. Of course, you need the form first. But the Upanishad moves one level higher. It says, Hrit pundarikam virajam vishuddham vichintya madhye vishadam vishokam achintyam avyaktam anantarupam shivam prashantam amritam brahmayonim. Such yogis or people who want to practice meditation, they meditate on the immortal source of all, the one who is Hrit Pundarikam, dwelling in one's own heart. You're not meditating on anything outside. You're dwelling on that Bhagwan, that immortal source of all, dwelling in your own heart. And what is that Bhagwan? He is untainted. He is pure, silent, blissful, happy, transcendent, formless, infinite, sacred, and peaceful. He's all these things. This is the Lord in the heart. The meditator ultimately comes to focus on. So it is not an external thing anymore. It is within you, you discover the Lord. But while I'm doing this process of meditation, many, many obstacles arise. And what to do with those obstacles? Because I get disturbed, disturbing thoughts may come, people may disturb, many things, factors are there that disturb. But Bhagwan in the Bhagavad Gita also addresses this disturbance. Even my own self, I have these emotions and everything which are, these emotions and everything which come up in me as well. How do I manage these emotions? When I sit with myself for a length of time, there can be the unconscious, Shastra also talks about it, it's called Kashayam. All the suppressed and repressed memories that come up during meditation, and I find myself battling with myself. So Bhagwan tells Arjuna, because he very beautifully, he says in the 6th chapter, the mind is as difficult to control as the wind, O Lord. I cannot do it. And Bhagwan says to him, you can. I know it's difficult. He says, but abhyasena vairagyena, with practice, you can manage your mind. With vairagya, with objectivity, you can manage your mind. And he says a very beautiful verse in this 6th chapter, one of my favorite verses. He says, Uddaret atmanatmanam atmanam avasadayet atmeva hyatmano bandhuhu atmeva ripuratmanaha. Which means, don't get bogged down by your emotions. Don't get dejected by anything in life, because lift yourself, uddaret atmanam atmanam, lift yourself up by yourself. Yes, Bhagavan is there very much by your side. He is there to guide you. He's there to teach you, but you are the one who has to lift yourself up. Nobody can lift you up. Uddaret atmanam atmanam, atmanam avasadayet. Don't reject yourself. Don't dislike yourself. This is very important. Don't have self-loathe, because we're very hard on ourselves. We're hard on other people many times as well, but we're very much harder on ourselves. Those people who are very critical of others are in fact very critical of themselves. So this, don't be hard on yourself. Don't be so tough on yourself. Don't reject yourself, because he says, Atmaiva hyatmana bandhuhu, you are your best friend in life. Nobody else, there's no other friend apart from you, actually. You are your best friend to yourself. And at the same time, Atmaiva ripuratmanaha, you are your worst enemy. So in one verse, Bhagavan says, you are your best friend, you're your worst enemy. How is that possible? Best friend and worst enemy? He says, bandhuratmanastasya yenatmaivatmanajitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatma shatruvat. In the next verse he says, for those who have conquered their mind, those who have mastered their mind, the mind becomes your best friend for you, because it is all the problem of the mind. You make your mind your enemy to yourself. You make the mind your best friend. For those who have not mastered their mind, not conquered their mind, the mind works like an enemy. The mind is responsible for dragging you down in life. The mind is what is responsible. So the mind can get you out of bondage. The mind can keep you in bondage. And Bhagavan, with these two verses, very important verses, he says, you have to be the one. You are the one who has to make the effort to lift yourself up. Become a friend to yourself, which means make your mind a friend to yourself. So this is the topic, the next topic of the Bhagavad Gita that comes. And I don't think there's much time, of course, but there's a very beautiful verse I wanted to finish with as well, from two verses actually. One from the Kathopanishad, which talks about making Bhagavan your friend, which talks about making Bhagavan help you in your life, working for you. But first of all, what Bhagavan is talked about in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I know myself now, the first few verses that we've discussed now are talking more about the individual. Now I have to know, what is the whole? The individual and the whole are equated in the Upanishads. Tattvamasi, you are that whole. What is that whole? And Bhagavan says in the 7th chapter, Mattaf parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mayi sarvamidam proktam sutre manigana iva. There is no cause superior than me. Everything in this universe is like beads on a thread. I am the string, I'm the thread that weaves those beads together into a garland. Bhagavan says that is what he's saying. He connects all the beads together. And Swami said something very nice on this verse that I want to also read. He says, although there is only one, it appears as though many. Similarly, the one highest Brahman, that consciousness without any change or transformation affecting it, being all the time it and it only, manifests as the world of names and forms. And he says, Brahman is the only real basis, like the string for the garland. Brahman is the string that penetrates and holds together the garland of all the jivas, of all the souls. All are attached to Brahman like beads, but he's free, unattached. So the universe is based in him, but he has no need for the universe as a base. The string and the structure are not visible to people. Only the flowers and the buildings are visible. But that does not mean the string and the structure are non-existent. Swami says, they support the flowers, they support the beads on the string. Well, if you know of their existence and their value by little effort and reasoning, he says, if you do not take that trouble, that string will escape your notice. Reason, examine, and you can arrive at the string that holds the flowers of the garland together. You can arrive at the strings that hold the beads together. So Bhagavan, this is what Bhagavan says, that the individual beads are not important at all. They should not distract your attention, which means the personalities and all of this we see, names and forms. Concentrate, Bhagavan says, rather on the inner reality, the basis of all the beads, the Brahman, which holds all the beads together as a string. And this is what Bhagavan says, his nature is, that connects everything. Everybody is connected. Everything is connected. And who is the connector? It is the Lord alone that connects every one of us. And I will just finish with one last verse from the Upanishads, because I concentrate more on Gita this time. Only a few of the Upanishad verses I took, but very important verse of the Upanishad. Again, Bhagavan, it is the chariot analogy that is given in Kathopanishad, which is also linked to Bhagavad Gita, given the same prominence in the Bhagavad Gita. So Swami says about the Upanishads, he says, liberation from the consequences of ignorance can be secured only by knowledge of jnana. The Upanishads themselves declare, jnanat eva tu kaivalyam. By knowledge alone can freedom be won. Swami says that. And how do I gain this knowledge? First of all, I need some self-management. And I call this the self-management verses from the Upanishads. Atmanam ratidam vidhi, shariram ratamevatu, buddhim tusaratim vidhi, manaf pragrahamevacha. This comes in the first Valli of Kathopanishad. It says, know the Atma as the Lord of the chariot. This Atma that is within you is the Lord of this chariot. What is this chariot? The body is the chariot. So body is the chariot, and the intelligence is the driver, buddhi. The intelligence, the intellect is what is ruling the chariot, driving the chariot. And the mind, what is the mind? The mind is the reins holding the horses, because in the next verse he says, Indriyani hyayan yahuhu vishayan teshu gocharan atmendriyamano yuktam bhoktetya hurmanishinaha. So the senses are the horses. They are all over the place unless the reins of the mind, the intellect controls the reins of the mind, which manage the senses, and you can go along the right direction. You can be guided in the right direction. And this is exactly what Bhagavan says in the Gita. The same analogy is taken where Krishna is, what is his name? He's Sanatana Sarati. He is the eternal charioteer. He is the one holding the intellect. He is living very much in every jiva in the form of conscience. He's there, intellect, driving, holding your mind. Give him the reins of mind. Let him manage the senses, the horses that could go in every direction if you don't give the reins to Bhagavan, reins of the mind to Bhagavan. And who is the Rathaswami, the jiva sitting there? Arjuna, he is the jiva, the individual sitting there. But Bhagavan is the one, if we give the reins of our life to Bhagavan, he will make sure the chariot moves in the right direction and he will reach us to the goal. So with that, I'd like to finish for any questions anybody has to offer. I know a lot of information in one talk, but in fact, I had more. I said more verses, I have to cut it down. But I thought it would be nice for you to see what Swami himself says about the Upanishads and the Gita in those particular verses as well.
Sairam Nandanaji, thanks for the unstoppable and nice talk. So much to gain. Thank you. Thanks very much for that. It's a great experience to listen to you. There's a question devotee Ramaniyaka sent it to me. I'll read it to you. The greatest challenge for the spiritual seekers is to remain connected with the inner being, Brahman, as the world possesses problems distracting away our attention. What could the spiritual seeker to do remain connected firmly? That was the question.
Yeah. So I think within the talk as well, I think a lot of the answers must have come because, as I said, the teaching is not divorced from reality. Bhagavan is giving a way of life. So I never forget him. If I live the life of Karma Yogi, is there any moment I can forget Bhagavan? No. Because before I begin any action, it is arpanam. It is given to Bhagavan. Mai sarvani karmani. I offer the action to Bhagavan. I do the action to the best of my ability. I give my 100% to any action I do because it is worship. That is what Bhagavan says, as a work is worship. So anything I do, I give 100% to it. But how do I take the result? I take the result as prasadam. That is the key for a karma yogi. Everything that comes in my life, whatever results manifest is prasadam, prasada buddhi. So there's not one moment I can be away from Bhagavan if I live this life, really. Because every moment it becomes charged with the knowledge that Ishvara is with me. Like Swami used to say, I'm in you, above you, around you, with all around you. So that's what he's talking about. He's in the form of karma diksha, in the form of karma paladata, the witness of all actions. He's very much there. And as the giver of the results of action, he's very much there in my life.
Thank you very much. And Arun and Brother Arun has asked a question and sent it through the chat box. But I'd rather ask him to say that question. It's about setting up goals in the life through Bhagavad Gita. Is it contradicting the Bhagavad Gita sense or something like that? Let him ask, then I won't interpret wrongly. Aruna, Brother Aruna, are you there? Can you ask the question, please?
Om Saram.
Sairam.
I just, we all need to set goals for the exams, for example, as a children, and also job objective. So how it is related to setting the goals? Is it contradicting with the Bhagavad Gita, or what is it?
No, the Shastra does not, again, Swami always, he always said ceiling on desires. He never said don't have desires, don't have goals, right? Swami said ceiling. What does ceiling mean? That means that I can desire, nothing wrong with having goals in life. Of course, the final goal should never be lost in sight with the intermediary goals. You can have the intermediary goals, but final goal, Shastra is very clear. Swami is also very clear in all his speeches. He said moksha, the discovering Bhagavan is the final goal for all of mankind. There's no other greater goal than that. So that should not leave. But at the same time, I still have desires. I'm a human being. I want to fulfill certain desires in my career, in my work, anything, in school, depending on my age. We all have desires. No harm in doing that. But even those desires can be as an offering. You can tell Bhagavan, I have such a desire. Bhagavan, I want to fulfill this desire. I set myself this goal. I will make effort to achieve this goal, but I leave the result in your hands. Whatever result you want to give, I'm ready to accept. Even if it's not what I want, I'm ready to accept. That is the attitude to life, actually. It is the attitude that will help people to grow emotionally, help people to mature.
Thank you, Sarah.
Right on.
Saram, if anyone wants to ask questions, you can come forward.
Yes, can I please ask a question? My question is...
Who is this? I'm sorry.
Who is this?
Christina here. Can I please ask a question?
Yes, yes.
Yes. My question is really about, you said mind should be fulfilled and calm, and we have to prepare the soil. And it's all about mastering the senses and how to bring the mind under control. The question I really have is regularity and also faith as well, Shraddha. So I wanted to know how can I in my life bring about sitting in meditation for half an hour without the mind going all over the place, and also the faith in the mantra, because the mind wants to, it's very, very hard to sit for meditation for half an hour.
First of all, who said sit for half an hour?
Well, I mean, I've been prescribed to sit for half an hour.
Okay. Yeah. So there's no time like that. We never say time, even for 5 minutes. Try it first for 5 minutes. I'm sure even, that, and we, traditionally the meditation is always guided at the beginning. So you have a guidance of how to meditate. So for a time, couple of years, there's actual guidance given on the posture, how to sit. This is traditional meditation. Then you're allowed to do it yourself. Otherwise, it's very difficult as well to slowly, to immediately get into it. It is, Swami suggests Jyoti meditation. That doesn't take very long to do, actually. Just picturing a light, and then you can take the light all over first of all in the mind, and then take it just all over the body, and you'll find yourself that takes 5-10 minutes to do that. So I would always recommend, don't go for half an hour meditations at the beginning. The mind is not ready for those type of meditations, because You have to take, everything slowly. It's slow progress, slow growth in the spiritual field. But one day when this practice is done, 10 minutes a day is not much. Even 5 minutes, if you can't do 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and no big pressure or goals on oneself. It's a regularity that bears fruit, results, regularity. So don't do it one day and then leave it for 2 weeks and then start again, and then leave it for a year and then start again. Regularly, early morning, just being with yourself. It's more than the meditation. It is learning to be with yourself and being okay with yourself. And when the mind goes out, you can always start chanting Om Sai Ram, Om Sai Ram, Om Sai Ram. Bring it back. Any mantra, you can Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, whatever you feel, you chant. Bring the mind back, and just watch your thoughts. That's the main one, very, very important technique in meditation that's given in the Shastra, which is observing one's thoughts. It is not judging the thoughts. Whatever thoughts come, it'll be like watching a movie screen, because you can see your thoughts. You know your state of mind. You know when you're angry. You know when you're happy. You know when you're sad. You know your thoughts. But because we become our thoughts, we don't have that space. So this regular practice of just observing one's thoughts, seeing that it's like a movie that comes and goes, not attaching to any thought in particular. If it's a negative thought also, let it come, let it go. You didn't invite negative thoughts in mind, right? Who asks negative thoughts to come in our mind? Nobody asks. They come because of karma. Again, Shastra says some karmic thing brings negative thinking. But if I can watch it, it will go off. To learn to observe your thoughts so they can go. So I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Nandanaji, Sai Ram. I have a question too. So before that, people who are humbly requesting them to come with video and introduce them and ask the question. We got almost 9,800 people there. So better to introduce themselves and come with video and ask the question. It's humbly my request. My question is this to Nandanaji. It's a bothering question to me the whole life. I think, I don't know, do you believe in fate? If the life is prefixed, why we all are doing all these kind of things, studying Bhagavad Gita and spiritual practices and everything? Does it work? If it is prefixed, what's the connection? What is this?
Yeah. So it is not, prefixed, we have to understand, there is a prarabdha karma. Prarabdha means prakarshena arabhyate. So as soon as a jiva is born in this world, they say the karma starts, The experience, karma manifests in the form of experiences of people who come into your life, of things that you have to go through. So that is what we call karma, because not everybody has the same karma as everybody else. So that is definitely, that comes with Purva Janma, according to our Shastra, results of past life and all of that included in the picture. But I cannot become, that is what Bhagavad saying, we cannot become fatalistic, because it is, my mother actually gave the best example for this. It is like playing a game of rummy, that, when you're dealt a set of cards in life, you cannot choose the cards that come to you, but you can choose how you play the cards, right? So we have the choice. That is what Bhagavan says very clearly in that karma nyeva adhikaraste verse. You have choice over action. Adhikaraha. You must act. He tells Arjuna, ma te sangostva karmani. That one line at the end, he says, do not become fatalistic. Do not think actions go to waste, because you continue to act, because by acting in this moment, you're creating karmas for your future as well. It is not going to waste. You are creating karmas for future. And prayer as a karma, according to the Vedas, if you pray, you are warding off papa karmas from manifesting. It's so powerful, because it is the one free will action for all of humanity. Nobody can come in between you and Bhagavan. Nobody can come in between you and prayer, because it's a one-to-one connection. And that prayer, regular prayer, daily prayer, wards off. It helps to ward off what papa karmas or what unpleasant situations manifesting in people's lives. So it's called nitya karma in the Veda. If you continue your nitya karmas, doing what is to be done, praying, you can ward off unpleasant. And even if you still pray, and unpleasant still happens, that means you have to experience that particular experience. Bhagavan himself, I remember Swami in a discourse in Puttaparthi once, I always remember that discourse because he said, people come to me and complain, oh Swami, I've been praying all my life and everything is going wrong. I've been praying, nothing happens. And Swami, he thumped the table. He literally thumped that podium table, and everybody, because the mic was near it, the whole congregation jumped when Swami thumped. And he said, how do you know I'm not protecting you from worse? How do you know your prayer is not protecting you from worse things happening? So, you know, nothing ever goes to waste. Even though unpleasant things happen, despite prayer, how do we know Bhagavan is not protecting from worse? He said that himself, because I cannot forget that discourse.
Sai, thanks very much. Any questions? We have maybe 5 minutes for any questions. Anybody wants a question?
Yeah. Sairam, I am Bala here. Sairam Nandanaji.
Bala uncle?
Sairam.
Who is
Can
this?
you hear me?
Bala
Bala.
uncle.
Bala.
Okay. Oh, Sairam. Sairam.
Sairam. This has gone there. This actually is a common question. In a household, normally that husband may be a meat eater and the wife is a quiet lady, and suppose he wants the meat and all, so the wife has to cut chicken or mutton, but she may not like, and she may think that is a wrong action. So according to Gita, you have to offer this wrong action also. Actually, you can't offer the wrong action to the Bhagavan, but she is supposed to do that one. And while he can't smilingly do this job actually. So in this case, can she abstain from this and say, walk away? So is it not, does she act against Dharma?
Yeah, it's a good question, because there are some things, unpleasant things that, you know, we sometimes have to do. But this particular example is that unpleasant, but again, also going against Dharma, because we talk about, you know, non-meat eating, vegetarianism. It's very much in spiritual life as well, because it is ahimsa paramo dharmaha. So it is non-hurtfulness, non-injury to any living creature, that is fundamental value in our Vedic scriptures. And also Swami has talked about ahimsa, human values, number one. So, but despite that, people are all different in the world. People do eat meat. Doesn't mean they're bad people. That's a background. They've grown up like that. We cannot judge anybody for doing that. And if you're married into such a family and your duty is first to your husband, you know, and he is not somebody who is how do you say, very understanding, or he you know, you have to cook for him, you cannot do anything else. So it is your duty. Then it becomes your duty. You have to do the duty, praying to Bhagavan, offering that action to Bhagavan, because you're doing your duty to your husband. As Patni, you have to serve Pati, right, in our Shastra. That is number one. So it's not a pleasant duty. It's a very unpleasant duty. You can't talk, you know, in these cases. You can discuss with your husband saying, I'm not keen on doing this work. If you can do this yourself, then please do. If he's not open to it, then we can offer such thing, because we know it is not something which is based on something I want to do. I offer that to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan can change the husband's mind. That is the prayer. Oh Lord, every time you chant and you chop the meat, you say, Bhagavan, please change the husband's mind, turn him into vegetarian. And he can immediately, Bhagavan can do anything, right? He can change anyone's mind. So we still have to see what, you know, each situation you have to take.
Wonderful. Sairam.
Sairam.
Sairam Nandanaji, thanks very much for answering our questions. Just because from the chat box, everybody is asking to arrange more on your session. Actually, we already booked Nandanaji. She agreed to do another one too. And not only that, in future, maybe in a different day, Vedic class is going to be happen. I'll inform what's the plan and talking time Professionally she's agreed. Thank you very much for that one. And I think that is time for the questions. And brother Dr. Upadhyay he has to go somewhere, so he phoned me and asked me to convey his regards for the whole congregation and Nandanaji and everything. Okay, Nandanaji, thank you very much. You want to finish it with your signature song?
Yeah. I just want to say next week it's going to be, I think, question and answer, right, session. More a question and answer. So if people have any question on Shastra or anything, was that what you? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's what we were planning that way. We were planned, and question and answers is going to be next session completely. So ask questions which is beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, if people could send them to you before, and then I could and then I can prepare a bit more. So that would be more useful. So during this week, if any questions come from anything regarding what Shastra says, or if wanting to understand what Swami has also been saying, then they can send to you, and then you can forward to me. So I'm ready.
Sairam. Okay. People know my email address, or normally I send WhatsApp messages. So either way, or anyway, you can send your questions, text, WhatsApp, or email. Then I pass on to Nandanaji. Is it okay? Yeah. Sairam. Okay. You want to sing first?
Yeah. Om. I'll just chant the closing prayers and then.
Okay. Thank you.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Sarve Santu Niramayaha. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sairam. Thank you.
Sairam. Okay.
Bye.
Sairam, thank you very much. So